Welcome to Wikipedipodcast, a podcast where I talk about a Wikipedia article. Yep, that's literally it. We're talking about cheese today. Here we go. Ready? Cheese is a dairy product derived from milk and produced in wide ranges of flavors, textures, and forms by coagulation of the milk protein casein. Casein? It comprises proteins and fat from milk, usually the milk of cows, buffalo, goats, or sheep. During production, the milk is usually acidified, and adding the enzymes of rennet, or bacterial enzymes with similar activity, causes the milk proteins, casein, to coagulate. The solids, curd, are separated from the liquid, whey, and pressed into final form. These cheeses have aromatic molds on the rind, the outer layer, or throughout. Most cheeses melt at cooking temperature. Over 1,000 types of cheese exist and are currently produced in various countries. Their styles, textures, and flavors depend on the origin of the milk, including the animal's diet, whether they have been pasteurized or the butterfat content, the bacteria, and mold, the processing, and how long they have been aged for. Herbs, spices, or wood smoke may be used as flavoring agents. The yellow to red color of many cheeses is produced by adding annatto. Other ingredients may be added to some cheeses, such as black pepper, garlic, chives, or cranberries. A cheesemonger? What the fuck is that? Or specialist seller of cheeses may have expertise with selecting the cheeses, purchasing, receiving, storing, and ripening them. Ripening cheeses. I don't know if I want that. For a few cheeses, the milk is curdled by adding acids, such as vinegar or lemon juice. Most cheeses are acidified to a lesser degree than by bacteria, which turn milk sugars into lactic acid. Then the addition of rennet completes the curdling. Vegetarian alternatives to rennet are available. Most are produced by fermentation of the fungus Mucormeae, but others have been extracted from various species of the Sayonara thistle family. Cheesemakers near a dairy region may benefit from fresher, lower-priced milk and lower shipping costs. Cheese is valued for its portability, long life, and high content of fat, protein, calcium, and phosphorus. Cheese is more compact and has a longer shelf life than milk, although how long a cheese will keep depends on the type of cheese. Hard cheeses, such as Parmesan, last longer than soft cheeses, such as Brie or goat's milk cheese. The long storage life of some cheeses, especially when encased in a protective rind, allows selling when markets are favorable. Vacuum packaging of block-shaped cheeses and gas flushing of plastic bags with mixtures of carbon dioxide and nitrogen are used for storing and mass distribution of cheeses in the 21st century. Etymology. The word cheese comes from Latin caseus, from which the modern word casein is also derived. The earliest source is from the Proto-Indo-European root quat, which means to ferment, become sour. The word cheese comes from cheese, ches in Middle English, or cease, or ses in Old English. Similar words are shared by other West Germanic languages: West Frisian, ziz, Dutch Kaz, German Kasse, Old High German chassis. All from the reconstructed West Germanic word cassi, which in turn is an early borrowing from Latin. Oh my gosh. The online etymological dictionary states that cheese comes from Old English cis, West Saxon cis, Anglian, from West Germanic kasjes, source also of Old Saxon kasi, Old High German chassis, German kasse, Middle Dutch case, Dutch kas, from Latin cassius, brackets for, quote, cheese, parentheses, source of Italian Casio, Spanish queso, Irish case, Welsh cause, end quote. What the fuck is that sentence? Oh my god. What the absolute hell is that sentence? I hate brackets, quotes, parentheses. They all add up to a disgusting mess of a sentence. All right, anyways. The online etymological dictionary states that the word is of unknown origin, perhaps from a pi root, quat, to ferment, become sour, source of... Didn't we just read this? We just read all this. It's all... Or leaven, fermented drink, chylus, sour. It's a bunch of fucking nonsense. Also compare fromage, Old Norse oster, Danish ost, Swedish osts are related to Latin eus, quote, broth, sauce, juice. You know, I really don't want to think about my cheese being juicy. You know, I mean, that's just me, but, you know, juicy cheese is not exactly top of my list. When the Romans began to make hard cheeses for their legionnaires' supplies, a new word started to be used. Formaticum, from Cassius formatus, or, quote, molded cheese. Parentheses, as in, quote, formed, not, quote, moldy, end parentheses. It is from this word that the French fromage, Standard Italian, formaggio, Catilan, formatage, Breton formua, I don't know. Does it have a soft J? An occitan, fromage, or fuck. Okay, are derived. Of these Romance languages, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, Tuscan, and Southern Italian dialects use words derived from Cassius. Queso, 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 for example. The word cheese itself is occasionally employed in a sense that means molded or formed. Head cheese, I don't want to think about head cheese. Uses the word in this sense. The term cheese is also used as a noun, verb, and adjective in a number of figurative expressions, e.g., the big cheese, to be cheesed off, and cheesy lyrics. Let's go on. History. Origins. Cheese is an ancient food whose origins predate recorded history. There is no conclusive evidence indicating where cheesemaking originated, whether in Europe, Central Asia, or in the Middle East, but the practice had spread within Europe prior to Roman times, and according to Pliny the Elder, had become a sophisticated enterprise by the time the Roman Empire came into being. That's kind of hilarious. So no one knows who the first person was that squeezed the udders of a cow into a little bowl, into a clay bowl, and let it, like, ferment itself. Although we haven't gotten to the processing part yet. But, like, who let itself, like, turn into mold and then said, fuck it, let's eat this goop, and just scooped it out of the bowl with his hand. It's, like, covered in wet cheese, and, like, ate it all on up and was like, that's pretty good. And he kept on doing it. Kind of. Anyway, so we have no idea who that guy was. Earliest proposed dates for the origin of cheesemaking range from around 8000 BCE, when sheep were first domesticated. Since animals' skins and inflated internal organs have, since ancient times, provided storage vessels for a range of foodstuffs, it is probable that the process of cheesemaking was discovered accidentally by storing milk in a container made from the stomach of an animal, resulting in the milk being turned to curd and whey by the rennet from the stomach. There is a legend with variations about the discovery of cheese by an Arab trader who used this method of storing milk. Oh my god. Okay, so apparently the first guy that made cheese was just was carrying around a sack of, like, was carrying around the udder from a cow as, like, a storage vessel, and accidentally made cheese. Why would he think to eat that? why would he grab that sack and like when he realized, oh, this isn't storing like my water very well, it's making some weird solid chunks in the bottom, decided to reach in, pluck out a little nugget of delicious cheese and eat it. What kind of crazy madman would do that? Whew, okay, well, that's interesting. Although it is a legend. Is it real? It's a real legend. The earliest evidence of cheese making in the archaeological record dates back to 5500 BCE and is found in what is now Kujawia, Poland. Oh, in Poland. Okay. I was concerned that I didn't know what that country was. And I was going to feel very embarrassed for not knowing that country. But it's Poland. I know Poland. Where strainers coated with milk fat molecules had been found. The earliest cheeses were likely quite sour and salty, similar in texture to rustic cottage cheese or feta, a crumbly, flavorful Greek cheese. Cheese produced in Europe, where climates are cooler than the Middle East, require less salt for preservation. With less salt and acidity, the cheese became a suitable environment for useful microbes and molds, giving aged cheese their respective flavors. The earliest ever discovered preserved cheese was found in the Taklamakan Desert in Xinjiang, China, dating back as early as 1615 BCE, 3,600 years before present. Wow, I mean, that's such a long time ago. Ancient Greece and Rome. Ancient Greek mythology credited Aristeus with the discovery of cheese. Homer's Odyssey, 8th century BCE, describes the Cyclops making and storing sheep's and goat's milk cheese. Translation by Samuel Butler. We soon reached his cave, but he was out shepherding, so we went inside and took stock of all that we could see. His cheese racks were loaded with cheeses, and he had more lambs and kids than his pens could hold. I thought that said a different word than pens. When he had so done, he sat down and milked his ewes and goats, all in due course, and then let each of them have her own young. He curdled half the milk and set it aside in wicker strainers. By Roman times, cheese was an everyday food and cheesemaking a mature art. Columella's de Ruscut. What the fuck? Details the cheesemaking process involving rennet, coagulation, pressing of the curd, salting, and aging. Pressing of the curd sounds like running of the bulls. Anyways, Pliny's Natural History devotes a chapter describing the diversity of cheeses enjoyed by Romans of the early empire. He states that the best cheeses came from the villages near Nimes, but did not keep long and had to be eaten fresh. Cheeses of the Alps and Apennines were as remarkable for their variety then as now. Ligurian cheese was noted for being made mostly from sheep's milk, and some cheeses produced nearby were stated to weigh as much as 1,000 pounds each. Holy shit! Goat's milk cheese was a recent taste in Rome, improved over the medicinal taste of Gal's similar cheeses by smoking. Of cheeses from overseas, Pliny preferred those of Bithynian in Asia Minor. Okay. Post-Roman Europe. As Romanized populations encountered unfamiliar, newly settled neighbors, bringing their own cheese-making traditions, their own flocks, and their own unrelated words for cheese, cheeses in Europe diversified further, with various locales developing their own distinctive traditions and products. As long-distance trade collapsed, only travelers would encounter unfamiliar cheeses. Charlemagne's first encounter with a white cheese that had an edible rind forms one of the constructed anecdotes of Notker's Life of the Emperor. The British Cheese Board claims that Britain had approximately 700 distinct local cheeses. France and Italy have perhaps 400 each. A French proverb holds that there is a different French cheese for every day of the year. And Charles de Gaulle once asked, "How can you govern a country in which there are 246 kinds of cheese?" Still, the advancement of cheese art in Europe was slow during the centuries after Rome's fall. Many cheeses today were first recorded in the late Middle Ages or after. Cheeses like cheddar around 1500, Parmesan in 1597, Gouda in 1967, 1697, and Camembert in 1791. 46, the Proverbs of John Haywood claimed, "The moon is made of a green cheese." Green may refer here not to the color, as many now think, but to being new or unaged. Variations on this sentiment were long repeated, and NASA exploited this myth for an April Fool's Day spoof announcement in 2006. Modern era. Until its modern spread along with European culture, cheese was nearly unheard of in East Asian cultures and in the pre-Columbian Americas, and had only limited use in sub-Mediterranean Africa, mainly being widespread and popular only in Europe, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent, and areas influenced by those cultures. But with the spread first of European imperialism and later of Euro-American culture and food, cheese has gradually become known and increasingly popular worldwide. The first factory for the industrial production of cheese opened in Switzerland in 1815, but large-scale production first found real success in the United States. Woo! Credit usually goes to Jesse Williams, a dairy farmer from Rome, New York, who in 1851 started making cheese in an assembly line fashion using the milk from neighboring farms. Within decades, hundreds of such dairy associations existed. In the 1860s saw the beginnings of mass-produced rennet, and by the turn of the century, scientists were producing pure microbial cultures. Before then, bacteria in cheesemaking had come from the environment or from recycling an earlier batch's whey. The pure cultures meant a more standardized cheese could be produced. Factory-made cheese overtook traditional cheesemaking in the World War II era, and factories have been the source of most cheese in America and Europe ever since. Production. In 2014, world production of cheese from whole cow milk was 18.7 million tons, with the United States accounting for 29%, 5.4 million tons, of the world total, followed by Germany, France, and Italy as major producers. Other 2014 world totals for processed cheese include: from skimmed cow milk, 2.4 million tons, leading country Germany, 845,000 tons. From goat milk, 523,040 tons, leading country South Sudan. From sheep milk, 680,302 tons, leading country Greece. From buffalo milk, 127,000 tons, leading country Egypt. During 2015, Germany, France, Netherlands, and Italy exported 10 to 14% of the produced cheese. The United States was a marginal exporter, 5.3% of total cow milk production, as most of its output was for the domestic market. France, Italy, Finland, Denmark, and Germany were the highest consumers of cheese in 2014, averaging 25 kilograms, 55 pounds, per person. Production, millions of tons, and by place. So European Union, 9 millions of tons. USA, 5.4 million. Germany, 1.9 million. France, 1.8 million. Italy, 1.2 million. And rolling up in sixth place. Rolling up in sixth place, I don't have a drum roll, with 0.8 million tons. And the crowd goes wild. Processing. Curdling. A required step in cheese making is separating the milk into solid curds and solid and liquid whey. Usually this step is done by acidifying, souring the milk, and adding rennet. The acidification can be accomplished directly by the addition of an acid, such as vinegar. In a few cases, paneer, queso fresco. More commonly, starter bacteria are employed instead, which convert milk sugars into lactic acid. The same bacteria and the enzymes they produce also play a large role in the eventual flavor of aged cheeses. Most cheeses are made with starter bacteria from Lactococcus, Lactobacillus, or Streptococcus genera. Isn't that like a disease? Anyways, Swiss starter cultures also include Propionibacter shermani, which produces carbon dioxide gas bubbles during aging, giving Swiss cheese or Emmental its holes, called eyes. Oh, I don't want to think of the holes in Swiss cheese as eyes. Who calls them eyes? Who the fuck thought of that? The cheese has eyes. Can someone please make a picture of that instead of the hills of his eyes? Some fresh cheeses are curdled only by acidity, but most cheeses also use rennet. Rennet sets the cheese into a strong and rubbery gel compared to the fragile curds produced by acidic coagulation alone. It also allows curdling at a lower acidity, important because flavor-making bacteria are inhibited in low and high acidity environments. In general, softer, smaller, fresher cheeses are curdled with a greater proportion of acid to rennet than harder, larger, longer-aged varieties. While rennet was traditionally produced via extraction from the inner mucosa of the fourth stomach chamber of slaughtered young, unweaven calves. Oh, that's sad. The fourth stomach chamber of a little calf. Most rennet used today in cheese making is produced recombinantly. The majority of the applied chymosin is retained in the whey and at most may be present in cheese in trace quantities. In ripe cheese, the type and provenance of chymosin used in production cannot be determined. Fuck, this is so hard. I always end up doing these Wikipedia articles that are so filled with like weird biological terminology or chemistry related terminology, and it's so difficult. Curd processing. At this point, the cheese has set into a very moist gel. Some soft cheeses are now essentially complete. They are drained, salted, and packaged. For most of the rest, the curd is cut into small cubes. This allows water to drain from the individual pieces of curd. Some hard cheeses are then heated to temperatures in the range of 35 to 55 degrees Celsius, 95 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. This forces more whey from the cut curd. It also changes the taste of the finished cheese, affecting both the bacterial culture and the milk chemistry. Cheeses that are heated to the higher temperatures are usually made with thermophilic starter bacteria that survive this step, either lactobacilli or streptococci. Salt has roles in cheese besides adding a salty flavor. It preserves cheese from spoiling, draws moisture from the curd, and firms the cheese's texture in an interaction with its proteins. Some cheeses are salted from the outside with dry salt or brine washes. Most cheeses have the salt mixed directly into the curds. Other techniques influence a cheese's texture and flavor. Some examples are stretching, mozzarella and provolone, delicious. The curd is stretched and kneaded into hot water, developing a stringy, fibrous body. Cheddaring. Cheddaring is a word? What? Cheddar, other English cheeses. The cut curd is repeatedly piled up, pushing more moisture away. The curd is also mixed or milled for a long time, taking the sharp edges off the cut curd pieces and influencing the final product's texture. Washing. Edam, Gouda, Colby. The curd is washed in warm water, lowering its acidity and making for a milder tasting cheese. Most cheeses achieve their final shape when the curds are pressed into a mold or form. The harder the cheese, the more pressure is applied. The pressure drives out moisture. The molds are designed to allow water to escape and unifies the curds into a single solid body. Ripening. A newborn cheese is usually salty yet bland in flavor and, for harder varieties, rubbery in texture. These qualities are sometimes enjoyed. Cheese curds are eaten on their own, but normally cheeses are left to rest under controlled conditions. This aging period, also called ripening, or from the French affinage, lasts from a few days to several years. As the cheese ages, microbes and enzymes transform texture and intensify flavor. This transformation is largely a result of the breakdown of casein proteins and milk fat into a complex mix of amino acids, amines, and fatty acids. Some cheeses have additional bacteria or molds intentionally introduced before or during aging. In traditional cheese making, these microbes might be already present in the aging room. They are simply allowed to settle and grow on the stored cheeses. More often today, prepared cultures are used, giving more consistent results and putting fewer constraints on the environment where the cheese ages. These cheeses include soft ripened cheeses such as brie, camembert, blue cheeses such as Roquefort, Stilton, Gorgonzola, and rind-washed cheeses such as Limburger. Cool. That's interesting. I really love Wikipedia articles. I find them so interesting, even though I feel like they shouldn't be. Types of cheeses. There are many types of cheeses with around 500 different varieties recognized by the International Dairy Federation. Oh my God. More than 400 identified by Walter and Hargrove, more than 500 by Burkhalter, and more than 1,000 by Sandine and Elliker. The varieties may be grouped or classified into types according to criteria such as length of aging, texture, methods of making, fat content, animal milk, country or origin or region of origin, etc. With these criteria either being used singly or in combination, with no single method being universally used. The method most commonly and traditionally used is based on moisture content, which is then further discriminated by fat content and curing or ripening methods. Some attempts have been made to rationalize the classification of cheese. A scheme was proposed by Pieter Wallstra, which uses the primary and secondary starter combined with moisture content, and Walter and Hargrove suggested classifying by production methods, which produces 18 types, which are then further grouped by moisture content. So there's only really like 18 types of cheese, and then everything else is like a subcategory of that. Is that right? Is that what they just said? No, this is definitely more than 18. Cooking and eating. Oh, this is my favorite part. Okay, at refrigerator temperatures, the fat in a piece of cheese is as hard as unsoftened butter, and its protein structure is stiff as well. Flavor and odor compounds are less easily liberated when cold. For improvements in flavor and texture, it is widely advised that cheeses be allowed to warm up to room temperature before eating. If the cheese is further warmed to 26 to 32 degrees Celsius, 79 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the fats will begin to sweat out as they go beyond soft to fully liquid. Above room temperatures, most hard cheeses melt. Rennet curdled cheeses have a gel-like protein matrix that is broken down by heat. When enough protein bonds are broken, the cheese itself turns from a solid to a viscous liquid. Soft, high-moisture cheeses will melt around 55 degrees Celsius, 131 degrees Fahrenheit, while hard, low-moisture cheeses such as Parmesan remain solid until they reach about 82 degrees Celsius, 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Acid-set cheeses such as halloumi, paneer, some whey cheeses, and many varieties of fresh goat cheese have a protein structure that remains intact at high temperatures. When cooked, these cheeses just get firmer as water evaporates. Some cheeses, like raclette, melt smoothly. Many tend to become stringy or suffer from a separation of their fats. Many of these can be coaxed into melting smoothly in the presence of acids or starch. Fondue, with wine providing the acidity, is a good example of a smoothly melted cheese dish. Elastic stringiness is a quality that is sometimes enjoyed in dishes including pizza and Welsh rarebit. I have no idea what that is. Even a melted cheese eventually turns solid again after enough moisture is cooked off. The saying, quote, "You can't melt cheese twice," quote, end quote, meaning, quote, "some things can only be done once," end quote, end parentheses, refers to the fact that oils leach out during the first melting and are gone, leaving the non-meltable solids behind. That's a great point. I've never thought about that you can't remelt cheese. Cheese boards. A cheese board or cheese course may be served at the end of a meal, either replacing, before, or following dessert. The British tradition is to have cheese after dessert, accompanied by sweet wines like port. Port's great. I really do like port. In France, cheese is consumed before dessert with robust red wine. A cheese board typically has constraining cheeses with accompaniments such as crackers, biscuits, grapes, nuts, celery, or chutney. Sorry, why did I almost say chestnut? A cheese board 70 feet, 21 meters long was used to feature the variety of cheeses manufactured in Wisconsin, where the state legislature recognizes a cheese head hat as a state symbol. The nutritional value of cheese varies widely. Cottage cheese may consist of 4% fat and 11% protein, while some whey cheeses are 15% fat and 11% protein. And triple creme cheeses are 36% fat and 7% protein. In general, cheese is a rich source, 20% or more of the daily value, of calcium, protein, phosphorus, sodium, and saturated fat. A 28-gram, 1 ounce serving of cheddar cheese contains about 7 grams, 0.25 ounces of protein and 202 milligrams of calcium. Nutritionally, cheese is essentially concentrated milk, but altered by the culturing and aging processes, it takes about 200 grams, 7.1 ounces, of milk to provide that much protein, and 150 grams, 5.3 ounces, to equal the calcium. Cardiovascular disease. The national health organizations, such as the American Heart Association, Association of UK Dietitians, British National Health Service, and Mayo Clinic, among others, recommend that cheese consumption be minimized, replaced in snacks and meals by plant food, or restricted to low-fat cheeses to reduce caloric intake and blood vessels of HDL fat, which is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. There is no high-quality clinical evidence that cheese consumption lowers the risk of cardiovascular diseases. Okay, so it's like, hey, all these people say you should stop it, but also there's no evidence, and it's all bullshit. Okay, pasteurization. A number of food safety agencies around the world have warned the risks risks of raw milk cheeses. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration states that soft, raw milk cheeses can cause, quote, serious infectious diseases including listeriosis, brucellosis, salmonellosis, and tuberculosis, end quote. It is U.S. law since 1944 that all raw milk cheeses, including imports since 1951, must be aged at least 60 days. Australia has a wide ban on raw milk cheeses as well, though in recent years exceptions have been made for Swiss Gruyere, Emmental, and Srins, and for French Roquefort. There is a trend for cheeses to be pasteurized even when not required by law. Pregnant women may face an additional risk from cheese. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control, which, as an aside real quick, has actually called me several times, has warned pregnant women against eating soft ripened cheeses and blue-veined cheeses due to the listeria risk, which can cause miscarriage or harm the fetus. Cultural attitudes. Although cheese is a vital source of nutrition in many regions of the world and it is extensively consumed in others, its use is not universal. What is there that cheese can't do? Cheese is amazing! Cheese is rarely found in Southeast and East Asian cuisines, presumably for historical reasons as dairy farming has historically been rare in these regions. However, Asia sentiment against cheese is not universal. Paneer, pronounced paneer, is I don't know how to pronounce it, even though they literally say the pronunciation right here. I don't know how to read the pronunciation, so it doesn't help. Is a fresh cheese common in the Indian subcontinent. It is an unaged, non-melting soft cheese made by curdling milk with a fruit or vegetable-derived acid such as lemon juice. Its acid-set form, cheese curd, before pressing, is called chena. In Nepal, the Dairy Development Corporation commercially manufactures cheese made from yak milk and a hard cheese made from either cow or yak milk known as chirpi. Sorry to laugh at that. That's probably insensitive in some way. Sorry. The national dish of Bhutan, Emadachi, is made from homemade yak or mare milk, cheese, and hot peppers. Ooh, I do love that, cheese and hot peppers. In Yunnan, China, several ethnic minority groups produce rushan and rubbing. It's literally just rubbing from cow's milk. Why'd I say it all weird? Cheese consumption may be increasing in China, with annual sales doubling from 1996 to 2003 to a still small $30 million a year. Certain kinds of Chinese preserved bean curd are sometimes misleadingly referred to in English as Chinese cheese because of their texture and strong flavor. Yeah, that's kind of racist. Anyways, let's keep going. Strict followers of the dietary laws of Islam and Judaism must avoid cheeses made with rennet from animals not slaughtered in a manner adhering to halal or kosher laws. Both faiths allow cheese made with vegetable-based rennet or with rennet made from animals that were processed in a halal or kosher manner. Many less orthodox Jews also believe that rennet undergoes enough processing to change its natural nature entirely and do not consider it to ever violate kosher laws. See cheese and kashrut. Maybe I will in the future. As cheese is a dairy food, under kosher rules it cannot be eaten in the same meal with any meat. Rennet derived from animal slaughter, and thus cheese made with animal-derived rennet, is not vegetarian. Most widely available vegetarian cheeses are made using rennet produced by fermentation of the fungus Mucor mehae. Vegans and other dairy-avoiding vegetarians do not eat conventional cheese, but some vegetable-based cheese substitutes soy, or almond are used as substitutes. Wait, what? That's kind of a funny sentence, that some non-conventional cheeses, like vegetable-based cheese substitutes, are used as substitutes. Well, yeah, duh, of course some substitutes are... Sorry, let me not... Even in cultures with long cheese traditions, consumers may perceive some cheeses that are especially pungent smelling or mold-bearing varieties such as Limburger or Roquefort as unpalatable. Such cheeses are an acquired taste because they are processed using mold or microbiological cultures. How did I say that 100% fine? But some of these other words that are so simple I fuck up on. Allowing odor and flavor molecules to resemble those in rotten foods. One author stated, quote, "An aversion to the odor of decay has the obvious biological value of steering us away from possible food poisoning. So it is not no wonder that an animal food that gives off whiffs of shoes and soil and the stable takes some getting used to," end quote. Collecting cheese labels is called, quote, tyrosemophilia. Tyrosemophilia? Figurative expressions. In the 19th century, cheese was used as a figurative way of saying the proper thing. This usage comes from Urdu cheese, a thing from Persian cheese. Cheese? From Old Persian, cis city. That's where I live, fucking cis city, am I right? Which means something. The term cheese in this sense was picked. Okay, look, I don't get this. Why do they do this? So, all right, quote, in brackets, just the P in picked, and then up by brackets colonial British in India by 1818, and was brackets was also end bracket, used in the sense of, quote, a big thing. What the fuck is this? What is the deal? Why do people do this when they're publishing things? I don't understand. It's probably just because I'm an idiot, but it's such a weird thing. Why do they do that? Why do they... For example, in the expression, he's the real cheese, the expression big cheese was tested in use in 1914 to mean an important person. This is likely American English in origin. The expression, to cut a big cheese, was used to mean to look important. This figurative expression referred to the huge wheels of cheese displayed by cheese retailers as a publicity stunt. The phrase, cut the cheese, also became an American slang term meaning to flatulate. The word cheese has also had the meaning of an ignorant, stupid person. Other figurative meanings involve the word cheese used as a verb. To cheese is recorded as meaning to stop what one is doing, run off. In 1812, this was the thieves' slang. To be cheesed off means to be annoyed. The expression, say cheese, in a photograph-taking context when the photographer wishes the people to smile for the photo, which means to smile, dates from 1930. The word was probably chosen because the EE encourages people to make a smile. The verb cheese was used as a slang for be quiet in the early 19th century in Britain. The fictional notion that the moon is made of green cheese as a type of a ridiculous assertion is made from 1520s. The figurative expression, to make cheeses, is an 1830s phrase referring to schoolgirls who amuse themselves by, quote, wheeling rapidly so one's petticoats blew out in a circle, then dropping down so they came to rest inflated and resembling a wheel of cheese. Actually, that's quite interesting. That's quite a fun usage of the word cheesing. So if you had a big dress, you'd spin around really quickly and then tuck in the bottom of it to make yourself look like, a wheel of cheese. That's quite fun. I actually kind of like that. Anyways, maybe I'll use that for when I'm in a dress and I spin myself around and tuck the bottom in. To cheese it means to win a game by using a strategy that requires minimal skill and knowledge or that exploits Splorts. That exploits a game or is... Oh no. Okay, I'm back. In video game slang, to cheese it means to win a game by using a strategy that requires minimal skill and knowledge or that exploits a... I said it again! In video game slang, to cheese it means to win a game by using a strategy that requires... I'm a professional. In video game slang, to cheese it means to win a game... No, damn it! Stop it! This is so stupid. Why am I stuck on this? Okay, in video game slang, to cheese it means to win a game by using a strategy. Damn it! I get to strategy and then I just start laughing. I can't... No, I can't. Copy link. Based. I'm like crying right now. It's so... The adjective cheesy has two meanings. The first is literal and means cheese-like. This definition is attested to form the late 14th century, e.g. a cheesy substance oozed from the broken jar. In the late 19th century, medical writers used the term cheesy in a more literal sense to describe morbid substances found in tumors, decaying flesh, etc. The adjective also has a figurative sense meaning cheap, inferior. This use is attested from 1896, perhaps originally U.S. student slang. In the late 19th century, in British slang, cheesy meant fine, showy. This use is attested to the 1850s. In writing lyrics for pop music, rock songs, or musical theater, cheesy is a pejorative term which means blatantly artificial. From, not form. Like, share, subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, eat a block of cheese, please, for me. Eat Chinese cheese, whatever that means.